What's up, y'all? Welcome to What the Freak. Super excited to jump into this next episode with my good friend, Andrew Young. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on the podcast here today, Nathan. I'm looking forward to our conversations. I know that we've been working together in a lot of different ways over the years, and now we get to really discuss what the meaning behind it all is.
Yeah, I'm stoked. And thanks for wearing such a bright, colorful shirt that just fully expresses who you are. Like when I think about you, like this shirt is just like a perfect embodiment of that.
Thank you. Over the years, I've taken an affinity to really look for different items that really express myself and, to be a shining beacon of not caring what anybody else thinks about me and, being able to fully express myself and having the courage to do so. It took a lot to get to that point. And it's, again, just one of those practices that makes me feel, happy to show up and, express myself in various different ways. And I think it then helps to inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, well, it is felt and appreciated and definitely inspiring to me. So
Fantastic.
I definitely appreciate it. Cool. Well, would love to start off by just asking you to introduce yourself, just share maybe a brief who I am, what I've done, that kind of thing. And then we will dive in. And I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about your story, just have you share kind of the more recent pieces of your story especially, and how we have been kind of weaving our paths back together again lately.
That sounds great. Well, my name's Andrew Young. I've lived here in Phoenix for over 15 years now. Moved here when I was 18 and just felt so connected from day one to this city, and it's been growing ever since. I'm a cannabinoid expert, an entrepreneur, activist. I'm a small business consultant. I do a lot of event planning. Basically anything fun I like to be involved in. And so I like to help push the community organization here in Phoenix, the Phoenix culture, and just support and encourage and create platforms and inspire others to do the same. And I just want to make the world a better place and with every effort that I do. And so that's really what drives me. And it's been quite a journey up into this point. And, I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about here today on what I've gone through, what I've had to go through, and where we're at today, and hopefully what lies ahead.
Amazing. Yeah. I also want to just say I really appreciate how multi-passionate you are. and some of my very best friends are what I would consider like very multi-passionate people. It's like you can't just do one thing. Your interest, your desire is just too enormous that you have to follow many different paths. And I know that you've walked many different paths in your life and continue to do so. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about how you've been weaving those together lately. So on that note, would love to hear if you could just share a little bit of your recent story. I know I've been a part of witnessing and being a part of your journey as you've went through kind of a job transition, a relationship transition, really just a overall life transition in a lot of ways. Very curious to have you share a little bit more about what that process of this new phase of your journey has been lately.
Sure, I'd love to dive into it. It's actually quite a story. From a very young age, I've been very passionate about cannabis and hemp and what it can really do for humanity in a lot of different ways. And, that helped at a very young age kind of set an intention for my life, and wanted to follow this interest of bringing the cannabinoid wellness to people. And from a very inception of the medical initiative here in Arizona, I helped push that forward and been involved in a lot of different various businesses, and really felt that this was my calling. Like, this is my passion. This is what I'm on the planet for, is to help be a shepherd of this plant and of Mother Nature to be accepted. And knowing that this is not a gateway drug, but it's a gateway to a better lifestyle, to a better planet, is what really drove me over the last decade plus to be involved in this industry and help shepherd it. And Several years ago, I was hired at a company called Harvest and was a construction project manager there. It didn't go so well, but I was able to connect with the gentleman there. And after I left Harvest, he actually asked me to come and work with him at a new startup company called CBD Emporium. And this is a CBD retail company. And this is kind of, 3 years ago, CBD retail was still a novel, thought and a novel concept. And so he brought me in as the director of operations to be his right-hand man and build out the concept of this brand and, continue to be on the front lines of, eradicating the stigma that's surrounding hemp and some of these compounds. And, I really worked tirelessly for about 2.5 years as the director of operations and then the vice president of product management and vendor relations, and was able to create a program that was very received by the hemp industry or the hemp brands that wanted to get on our shelf. And, I put us at the high end of retailers by creating a evaluation process that was more in depth than anybody could ever really think of or in depth, because I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know everything that they knew or understand that they didn't know everything that was going into their product. And so we wanted to make sure that we had the top tier products and brands on our shelves as partners. And, that was so well received that instead of, having to pay for various different brands to roll out into our stores, they actually provided free product for us to be able to provide in our stores, giving that they would be able to have at least a year shelf life on our stores. And so that program was fantastic. I was able to bring in over $1.5 million of product into our stores. But this was through COVID, and retail was a little bit difficult in COVID. And we pivoted and did a lot of different concepts. But at this time, we had over 30 stores that we had opened. And so the drag in retail really put a lot of overhead on us. And so it was difficult to manage coming out of COVID, and we kind of ran out of money. And all the vendors that I had brought on and put on our shelf and made promises that we would, continue to reorder for at least a year, we weren't able to fulfill on that commitment. And so for me, being very conscious and very energetically aligned, being the one responsible for that was very difficult for me to deal with on a daily basis, because I wasn't able to provide them any answers. I wasn't getting any answers. It was just the same old, I was getting fed the same thing over and over again. Money's coming. And, when there's a big outstanding debt to these vendors that I helped bring on, it just hurt my heart. And I could no longer continue in that particular process. Although I put everything into it, I gave my 110%, working 80 hours a week, taking less pay than I probably should have, just because I believed in it and I wanted to help people. And through this retail establishment, we're able to help hundreds of people a day find wellness through plants and through hemp and be able to eradicate stigma. And so that's what drove me in this particular position. But it finally came time late last year that I just had to throw in the towel and resign. And it was a very scary situation because I had worked so hard and dedicated so much of my time. For a moment, it felt like I was wasting it if I just walked away. And that was a feeling that I had to really acknowledge and look at that. But knowing through the wisdom of my life, understanding that these things that may not apply directly right now have a meaning for later on in my life. And so having that foresight and that ability to have faith that it wasn't wasted time. It was all growing. It was all relevant, even though I didn't know what that meant at the time. And so that helped me kind of get through and make the decision to resign. And, at that point, I was backed up on payroll and, in a financial position that was not very comfortable. And so immediately I had to figure out, how am I going to get some cash flow? What am I going to do? And, finding another executive position at a large CBD company doesn't happen overnight. And I didn't have the cash reserves to be able to support myself. And so immediately I called my good friend Nathan here. And, before I took these positions at these companies, I was, working my own consulting company. And, it's a lot of hustle doing consulting. You're always, putting proposals together and working on projects, but the consistency is never there. So having additional cash flow at that time was really important. And that's when I would work with Nathan and Freak Brothers doing these events, because I just love them. I love going to events. Like one of my
fun.
It is. It's one of the best things. I love going to events, but working them is a whole different experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really don't even like going to most events unless I'm like contributing in some way to the event, whether that's, vending pizzas or volunteering or just helping out in some way or performing. It's like I like to contribute to these events that I'm going out to, and I know you have like a similar experience.
I do. I really feel like I want to be connected and contribute in some way, shape, or form. But honestly, over the last couple of years, especially working so hard in my job, I've learned that being a patron is equally, if not more important than just participating, volunteering your time, or being a part of the setup. But being a event producer and understanding that paid patrons are equally, if not more important than volunteers, was a mindset that I had to really kind of accept and embrace. And over the last couple of years, have had a lot of fun not working at the events. But that being said,
there's time for that too. Yeah, that's beautiful.
It is. Beautiful. And working with Freak Brothers has always been an absolute pleasure. And so that's when I reached out to you, and I had no idea what was in store for me. And at this time of resigning my position at CBD Emporium, I was actually going through a breakup at the time too. And my girlfriend was living with me, and we just had this moment at a music festival where we just realized it wasn't going to work, and that was completely fine. I was in an environment where all my friends could support me and show me the love that they had for me and support me in my path and my decision, and it was perfect. I felt so supported and loved, and it helped me kind of go through that transition. But it was kind of like I was walking off a ledge, like not knowing what the universe had in store. But again, that was just a momentary experience, and I was able to realize through my life that these times of everything shattering and breaking apart was really an opportunity for better things to come my way, and that the universe works in different ways, but the most consistent is it builds and breaks down for more things to come and be built up for you. And in my life specifically, I've been blessed enough to see that things consistently get better. And I'm at this moment where everything was falling apart. Instead of being sad and having that energy of loss, I was excited. I'm like, okay, universe, what do you have in store? And some of the things that have guided my life is don't have an ego and just work on yourself. And so immediately after this, I started a 40-day yoga challenge where every day I would be doing a meditation and a yoga kriya in the morning. And over the years, I found it very inspiring for myself and others to hold myself accountable by making a post on social media every day. And so for 40 days in a row, I'd take a picture of myself and put a reflection of what I've experienced, what I'm grateful for, to show to other people that, I'm being consistent. This is my reflection when I do these things. And the comments, and every time when I'd go out and see somebody that I always want to talk about like yoga and like they're interested in how they're so excited and proud of me and my journey. And, that's why I love using social media. But, doing this particular type of process for myself helped me have a foundation in which to stay positive and stay open for life's blessings rather than being down on myself for what I've lost. And that helped me kind of turn around my perspective to see what's in front of me.
Wow. It's so beautiful just hearing you talk about this and having been invited to kind of see the inside of your process of this transition. You've been going through this next transformation in your life. And I remember even from the first conversation we had when you first hit me up, saying, hey, dude, would love to come cook some pizzas again. And I just got so excited. I remember even on that call, it's like you were really in it. Like I remember you were very much in it, and it was very up in the air, and you were still just trying to figure out what was going on and what you were doing and what direction you're headed in, and what was happening. And even in that moment, and I think this is a testament to probably how many times you've gone through a process like that, you were aware of what was happening.
Right.
And you weren't that concerned. Like you
Right.
weren't that worried or like you weren't in a super dark place, because even if it was uncomfortable and there was a lot of uncertainty, it seems to me you've developed this certain level of trust and faith in the universe, trust in your own self and your process. And, even if you can't see it, like, that things are going to continue to unfold day by day as long as you continue to choose to stay true to your path and true to yourself. And so it's really inspiring to see you in that place of discomfort and uncertainty while also having this very strong, almost like confident faith that like it's all going to be fine. Like it's all going to work out. Like I know it is. Like you already had that such a strong knowing that seemed like a really powerful companion to you in going through that journey. I'm almost getting this image of like you're holding your own hand through this process. It's like your higher self or future self is like reaching back to your current self and like being like, hey, it's gonna be okay. Like remember, like we've done things like this before, and like remember we're headed to a good place, and like
Exactly.
things are breaking down to create space for something even greater. So I just want to really acknowledge and reflect like how powerful that is, and like how inspiring that was to witness that process, and then to see what is now blooming for you in so many ways, which I'm curious to hear about next, of just kind of where have things gone since you've been going through this process. Things kind of fell away. What's kind of the newness that's been coming into your life and filling in that space that was created.
Well, first of all, thank you for that reflection. It's really humbling to see somebody be inspired by this particular process. And you're right, it's taken a lot of experiences to see from the other side. And I like to tell people when they're having this experience where they went through something really detrimental and life altering, but days, weeks, months, or years later, they're like, oh wow, that had to fall apart for this amazing blessing to be. And I tell them, put a stamp in your life right now for the feeling where you're at of the next time you're in that place when everything's falling apart, you can remind yourself what happened afterwards and why that had to happen. And so something that I've been really working on and learning from my yoga practice is being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and being neutral when things are going bad and being neutral when things are going really good, because that's just the flow of the universe. And so that's what I've been practicing, is just staying neutral and understanding the ebbs and flows of the universe. And so things have to, things that are seemingly negative are all just our perspective of it being negative. The universe doesn't see them as negative because it's just a way for it to progress. And when you kind of understand that, and you can take yourself out of your own, personal seven senses experience of like, oh, this is very uncomfortable, I don't like this, versus like understanding that this uncomfortability is really essential for the process to be flourishing and being comfortable. That mindset for myself personally transmutes that negative perspective into positivity, because I understand what the intention is. I understand why it's there. And when I keep reminding myself of that, you can transmute that whole experience into something beautiful and something positive. And, I highly encourage everybody to remember those times that have been difficult, but really why they were there to help you move through them the next time.
Yeah. And I also want to just add, like, this is a very natural process, right? This is actually how nature works.
Right.
A tree dies and then it breaks down. Exactly. And it's consumed by the soil, and then you grow a new tree.
Definitely.
And that happens everywhere in nature. And yet especially in our Western culture, we're so death averse.
Right.
And that can have many layers to it, right? It's like, yeah, we're averse, like we're trying to prolong our life as much as possible, almost to a ridiculous degree, in my opinion.
I agree.
We're so scared of death. It's like the ultimate. I was just listening to a podcast with Aubrey Marcus and Dr. Zach Bush and Charles Eisenstein, and I think it was Dr. Zach Bush who was saying, one of the ultimate failure as a doctor is if your patient dies. That's like ingrained in the culture of like our medical community. And he thinks that's such like a tragedy that is our perspective. It's like, yes, absolutely. We want to do everything we can to, support someone and help them and heal, help them to heal. But it's almost like the wrong focus. Like we're being anti-death rather than actually like wanting to support life flourishing.
Definitely.
And just honoring death for what it is and when it comes, if it is our time. And yet almost the paradox there is the more you focus on actually creating flourishing life, the more you will actually eliminate death.
It's a beautiful paradox.
Yeah.
And, the universe works through paradoxes. It's, I believe, the comedy of God, and, really how things balance each other out. And I love the analogy you said about Mother Nature and kind of seeing how it really flourishes. And when it dies, it really fertilizes the rest of the next growth and the next life. And I think getting my hands in the dirt and being more connected to nature has really helped this mindset again as well, is really to understand how the universe works and how we're made and how our actions in this life can help feed and sustain life in the next generations. And utilizing this gift of life that I have has always been something I don't take for granted. And I've always felt like I'm a warrior, right? I'm here to usher in this next paradigm shift that's going on, and I'm sent down here to do the work. And it's just been a journey up until this point, figuring out what that is. Like, what am I here to do? And it hasn't been until recently until I've like really started to get the picture. I've always had nuggets and different perspectives or thoughts or hypotheses of what I'm here to do, but until these last 6 months of really resigning from my position at CBD Emporium, it's becoming more and more clear. And the synchronicities that have been happening recently is just, again, another sign that apparently I'm walking my path, and the work that I've been doing over the years, self-work, because I've always wanted to change the world. But for my early 20s, I was using it externally. I was trying to change the world externally and doing things for other people, or doing things that I wouldn't necessarily give myself, that I knew were really good and I knew that it was great for other people, but I didn't fully integrate it into myself. And it was at a point when I was about 28, and this realization, it just really hit to me. I felt like my higher self was talking to me. It's like, by changing the world, you change yourself first. By being the example, by being the change you want to see in the world, is the way that the world works and the way that you can make this most significant impact. And that was a profound realization that I finally fully integrated. And at that point, I started making major changes in my life. I started, again, amplifying my career. I stopped drinking, which was a huge thing, and, really started changing my diet, started going vegetarian, been vegetarian for 5 years, quitting partying all the time, but still going out and enjoying myself sober, which was really difficult. And it took a lot of self-work to be able to be myself in an environment without having drugs or alcohol, to be able to have that lubrication to really be okay being myself. And it took a lot of work, but all of that, again, the reason why I did it, one of the big reasons why, is because I was working really hard in my career and everything, but things weren't just happening. I would work and it would just be like roadblock, or, this wouldn't work out, just not because of anything I did, but it would just not be the right environment. And the thing that I thought was, maybe I'm just not ready for the blessings to be bestowed upon me. Maybe I'm not ready to handle it. Maybe the universe, if it gave me all the blessings, I would blow it all and I'd screw my life up and like I'd be off the path. And that became really, really prevalent, which was another major reason why I started, doing my own self-work, is like, it became very prevalent where I can continue this process of, waiting and wondering why things aren't happening, but it became very clear that I needed to do the work first for the blessings to be able to come. And so that's got me to here. And I've got a strong daily Kundalini yoga practice that gives me the foundation in which to flourish. I've got a morning routine that I've implemented in my life of reading a book, using mantras, visualizing, journaling, working out and, drinking a protein shake and taking a shower and like doing meditation and yoga. That's my 2-hour morning routine that I do every single day that has propelled me. I mean, now I've got books of journals journaling was not something that was easy for me. Working out consistently has never been easy for me. Reading a book fully has never been easy. And now just reading a couple pages a day, I've read 3 books in a year, which is a big feat, but it's all those little steps.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing, right, how those little things add up over time and how you can really build momentum when you do something for long enough, even if it's just that like little bit, like you're saying, like just a few pages a day over the course of a year adds up to several entire books. Like that's beautiful. That's such a powerful principle.
Actually, you were actually part of actually me integrating this. So I don't know if you remember, but Josh and me went up to Sedona for a Conscious Film Festival to cook pizza at a Conscious Film Festival. And it was kind of a slow festival, so I was able to kind of walk around and maybe catch a couple of the movies. And there was this one movie and this presenter that impacted my life forever. And he has a book, and he actually produced his own movie, and it was called The Miracle Morning. And he had this big following and had like this long 5-hour miracle morning routine that he taught everybody. But he was there at the event to tell everybody, you don't have to do 5 hours in the morning. You can literally do 2 minutes and consistently do that, and you can get 80% of the value or the benefit by just doing that consistently. And it just blew my mind because at this point, me being consistent and having this long practice and like not able to do that just was so heavy that I wasn't consistent. And I'm like, if I can do something consistently for 40 days for 2 or 5 minutes, which I can do that, no problem, then maybe I can, see the benefit. And so, you know what? I tried that. And so what I did was I kind of took his teachings and everything that I just listed, yoga, meditation, reading, mantra, visualization, affirmations, journaling. That was all things that he suggested, and a lot of other things, because he combined all these elements that were really important to him and what he had done research. And he's like, yeah, you just do these for a minute, 2 minutes, each one of them every morning. Just wait and see. And I did that, and I've been doing it for over 3 years now.
Wow.
And it becomes easier and easier, and you want to do it longer and longer. And like at the end of the year, I always look back at my journal entries, and I'm just like so profound. And like, this was something impossible more than 3 or 4 years ago for me to even do. Like I couldn't do anything consistent. And it was these 40-day challenges of like dedicating to myself and giving this to myself and like building up the willpower to be able to overcome my subconscious mind that's always trying to derail me. And that's where my morning practice, it just gives me that time to observe my mind and be able to push myself through things that I don't want to do, to be able to build up that willpower to apply that to the rest of my life. And, building these skill sets has allowed me to come into a flow state in my life over the last 6 months. And, it's all attributed to all the small steps that I've taken throughout the years to be able to get to the point where the universe is like, the environment around you is right, you're right, and now the synchronicities and blessings are here to come. And that's how I feel right now. And it all kind of started working with you and working with a couple of my other clients that are just extremely energetically aligned in myself, my own values, and, with, the trends that are happening around the world. And I find that that's extremely important because in my previous career and Harvest and CBD Emporium, it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't energetically aligned. The people, the environment were just not in alignment with myself or my really trajectory. But I was still there because of the mission, and I thought that was really of value. And I stuck it on to the end because I'm not a quitter. I'm somebody that works hard, and I'm not going to give up easily. And it just came to a point where I was like, okay, universe is like forcing me. And this is what happens when you hit rock bottom. Everybody's rock bottom is a lot differently. And I've always tried to not hit a rock bottom. I've always tried to understand that I was on my way down or understand that now's the time to shift. And it hit a point where I made the decision and, walked off that cliff, and my whole life was in pieces. And, just day by day, I just kind of focused in on myself and worked hard and just allowed myself to be open to see where my next step on the journey was. And it came to the point of working pizza with you and doing deliveries from my friend's meal prep delivery service and working at a farmer's market. I was working 7 days a week, but loving it. I'm loving it. I'm like working all the time. I'm like, this is so much fun. I'm working with my friends. I'm doing things that help the world. They're energetically aligned. And I'm just so happy. I'm not a vice president, the blah, 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 and my ego. I had to let all that go, because even the people, when I told them like, hey, I'm quitting, I'm going to go work my friend at the pizza company, and they're like, why are you going to work slinging pizzas? And I'm just like, I don't care what you think. This makes me happy, and that's all that matters. And so you've always given me that peace of mind to be able to live my life and to have that foundation with Freak Brothers that I can, always have this to fall back on. And that gave me the courage in which to help resign from that position, knowing that I always have a place someplace. And, doing this has allowed us to grow together. And, we were talking about different ways that I could utilize my skill set and value. And, we came to an agreement to help you scale the business, which is exactly what I did for CBD Emporium. And so this is what I meant earlier in the call is I didn't understand why it fell apart. I didn't understand why I was at CBD Emporium at the moment. But now, since we were in discussion of, how I can help you, everything that I just did for CBD Emporium was training to really help you build something that's energetically aligned. And there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to succeed. Yeah. Because I feel like, when we have different people that are all aligned, it's going to work out. And I really, truly feel that in a lot of different ways. And, some of my other friends that I was working with just doing deliveries, now they're my consulting clients. And, just kind of organically grew into this particular position. And, it seems like everything's in flow and everything's synchronistically happening. And I went to a music festival a couple weeks ago and just like completely fell in love with the girl of my dreams. And like, it was just unbelievable the way that it manifested and how it happened. I couldn't have dreamed of a more perfect situation, and how synchronistic that is, and how complementary we are, but how different at the same time. And, kind of exploring this relationship because she's not from here. She lives in San Francisco, and taking it really slow and like just everything's a challenge. But now I'm at the point in my life where I embrace it. I embrace the challenges. I'm excited. I have a whole different mindset when it comes down to the challenges or the seemingly negative things that could be happening. But, being able to be open to what the intention of those really are.
Yeah. I want to take a moment to just acknowledge this piece around like choosing your highest energetic alignment.
Yes.
And that's something that has been one of the deepest guiding principles in my life, especially in times of uncertainty, where I was making choices that didn't necessarily make logical sense or didn't make any sense to other people, or was even actively discouraged by other people. Or I was making choices that like even put me into more discomfort sometimes. And I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? But I'm like, no, but I swear, like, this is it. This is the right thing for me. This is right for me. And this is right for me right now. And I trust that this thing will lead to the next one, will lead to the next one. And a couple other qualities that I really admire in you, want to just kind of like point out is, one, you have such a humility, like a genuine humility, where, you're working this, high profile corporate job, growing, scaling this business. And then after that, you choose to come work in the pizza shop, just making pizzas, just, on the line, talking to people, making food. It's like, I really appreciate and respect others who I meet who like don't put any type of work below themselves. And that's truly how I feel as well. That's why I'm always down to like jump on the line, make some pizzas, take out the trash. Like it's nothing's below me.
Definitely.
I don't ever want to be one of those guys sitting in a corporate boardroom, just like fucking barking orders and calling shots and not actually even caring or thinking about the people who that's affecting and like what my experience would be in their position if I had to deal with the decisions that were being made at the top. So, and even the term at the top is kind of a weird thing to me.
Definitely.
It's like this weird artificial hierarchy that we've created, and, ultimately usually carries with it a certain baggage of like a superiority complex, an ego to it, rather than, sure, I definitely am a believer in, those who are most capable of handling certain responsibilities should be in certain roles.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're any better or worse than anybody else.
Exactly.
You might have a more substantial role within the overall organism or organization that you're a part of. And yeah, some people do play more crucial roles or hold more responsibility.
Right.
But, on the other hand, it's like we're all energetic equals. And I really get that sense from you. And like when you showed up to work with us again, this most recent time, it's, there was no expectation there. There wasn't like, I'm doing this, so then maybe I can do this. It's like, I just want to do this because I enjoy it, and this is what's right for me, and this is what's exciting me, and I want to be in this environment and around these people, and I just trust that whatever's going to come from here is going to come from here. But I never got that sense of like, you were using this as a stepping stone to get somewhere else. And I'm just saying these things because I've worked with different people who have kind of an agenda or an expectation coming in, or, feel like they're at a certain place when they're actually not there, or they're the right person for this thing that they're actually not the right person for.
Right.
So I just really appreciated the humility that you show up with, and then the trust, and, and then, it just kind of naturally happened where the other really powerful piece of your story that I really get a lot of from you is you really have cultivated your ability to trust in your intuition on a very deep level. And even how that conversation came up about you working with us in a different capacity was me actually following my intuition to come out to that dinner at the Churchill that one night when I almost didn't come. And then I was like, I think I want to go. Like, I think I want to be there for some reason.
Right.
And you just happened to be there. And we just happened to go into this deep conversation for over an hour.
Right.
And we just noticed the alignment. It wasn't like either of us was trying to, at least I wasn't like trying to, figure this thing out, or I wasn't trying to, I didn't want to force anything. We were just having a natural, organic conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm looking for this, blah, blah, blah. That, the business is asking for more support. You're like, oh, cool. Like, blah, blah, blah. I've been doing this. Like, I have these skills. Like, and we're just like noticing like, oh, wow, there might be something here.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually could be really good.
Right.
Let's talk about this further. And it just kind of organically evolved from there. We had our first initial meeting, and we're like, yeah, this feels right. This feels good. And it's been great ever since. So,
good.
I guess just to share with those who are listening, so Andrew is now also working with us in a capacity of a consultant through your consulting business, Synergistic Collaborations.
That's right. Synergistic collabs.
Collabs.
It's all about, collaborations or collabs, in art, right? It's synergy. That's what I look for, and that's why I started the company 5 years ago as Synergistic Collabs, because I want to do synergistic collaborations with all of my clients, with the world. And again, we're talking about alignment, and that has to be a part of the relationship. And it wasn't as prevalent until today. And I think that the quality that you were just talking about, being humble, and that's a quality in a leader. And so I try and be as a natural leader as possible, and allow the organic synergy to be able to happen, and manifestation to be allowed. And that takes a lot of faith, but also, having an open heart to be able to see the signs and the omens. I'm just reading The Alchemist right now. I actually just finished it.
So good.
Oh my gosh, it just reaffirmed so many things.
First time reading it? Or?
First time reading it.
Dope.
Yes. Dope. It's one of those books that came into my life again, and I've got a handful of them that have, kind of shifted my trajectory on my my life, and it was so reaffirming and gave me some clearer insights into what I'm already naturally doing, but now I have a picture, a context of what's been happening in my life just naturally up until this point. And having that perspective allows me to drop in further and to be more open and to have, a vision or be aware of the signals and the signs that may be happening. And it's that intuition. It's the thing that's very subtle in your mind, or it could be a feeling, or it could be anything. And you just get this drive to do something and to follow that. And I've made a point over the last couple of years to not ignore that, to always follow it, because my higher self, my heart, my intuition, they know more than I do. And instead, what I would do before is I'd get those signs and I'd just ignore it. And I'd just continue going on my way of the way I wanted to with my intentions. And I've just lost all expectations of life right now. I have goals, I have dreams, but if something is derailed or if something goes a different direction, I'm completely open to that, because the universe has my best interest in mind, and that's where the faith comes in. That's where what has continually driven me and allowed me to be in a grateful, thankful space is the faith. And it's not religious faith. This is faith in myself and faith in my relationship with the universe that I've cultivated over my life. And, others that may be in a different place, I mean, you can always start. It takes a while, but again, the journey is worth it. You are worth it. Take that upon yourself to take the little steps. It takes a moment, it takes a day, it takes, those little tiny steps, those little accomplishments. That's why I do yoga every day, just to have a little accomplishment, to feel good about myself. Like I did something. I did something good for myself. And you know what? Myself feels good about it. My future self feels good about it,
And that's something that you have control over.
I have complete control.
Even if you don't have control over a job ending or relationship ending, it's like there's these things that are to some degree genuinely just out of our control.
Yep.
But you have control each day to at least do something.
That's right.
Of your own choosing, of your own sovereign, being. You get to choose, I did this, and you can feel good about that.
That's right. And I give myself time in the morning, because a lot of time I work late at night. I'm a night owl. I get very creative at night. Mornings were always extremely difficult for me to wake up and to be excited about waking up. That was the biggest thing. You wake up, you get your alarm, you're like, I'm going to hit snooze again. And, I got this day, I got to do all these things. But what I realized was, when you have this morning routine, if you have this something that gets you excited, something that you look forward to, getting out of bed in the morning is that much easier. And if you're a high performance person and you like to operate at your fullest, giving yourself that time in the morning allows you to really operate at your peak efficiency for the rest of the day, because you've already given yourself that time. You've already got that ability. So for me personally, I could work super late and feel just fine, because I did my morning routine. I'm fully full and I continually do that. But if I skip my morning routine and have to do it later on in the day, it becomes so much more difficult. I still force myself to do it. It's not as much fun, not as in flow. It's definitely more challenging, but I still push myself to do that. And it's still paying dividends, and I'm still dropping in further. I'm still learning. I'm still experiencing more. And right now, the feeling that I get throughout the day of just the resonation of, the beauty and the gratefulness just brings me to this such, feeling of joy that I can do it pretty much whenever I want to now. And it's just been something I've been experiencing, and, hope others can find that, within themselves as well. And just to be authentically happy with everything, the ups and downs, and, whatever life has in store for you.
Wow. Man, this has been a really good conversation. I'm like, I could see like 3 different directions we could go from here. You're one of those people that I talk to where I'm like, man, we could just talk for hours. We could just go off on any other topics. I am curious to go a little more deep into one piece of conversation. So I actually want to go a little bit more into the work that we're doing together.
Okay.
Because there's this thing in business that I'm really passionate about, which I want to figure out how to do something. I want to prove that something's possible that I don't really see happening right now, or I think is a very rare thing to happen, which is, how do you scale a business? One, not only to not disconnect from the essence of what you do, because I feel like most businesses, when they scale, right, they get watered down to a degree. That's at least my
you make
general
concessions,
experience.
based on certain circumstances for scaling and what's feasible and what's not. And it's different for everybody in every company and every industry, but it could be something that could be affected.
Yeah, and not even to say that businesses shouldn't change as they grow bigger. I think that's a natural process. And a lot of bigger brands that I come across, it seems like at some point or over time, there's more and more of a disconnect from like the essence of what actually made that business special and unique in the first place and made it, successful in the first place, that they wanted to scale it. But then through some type of, like small sacrifices or small compromises over time, it just gets to a point where, whoa, there's like this weird energetic disconnect from like the essence of the business and like where it's at. So like one example of that was, Chipotle. When I worked at Chipotle for a year, I love Chipotle. I have for many years. I still do. Their food is really good. They, from a marketing perspective and then being behind the scenes, they actually are very in integrity with what they share about their food, and their mission, I think, is very noble. And, to change the way people think about and eat fast food, I feel like they've really done that and continue to do so. And yet when I worked there, there was this weird disconnect between the ground level employees who were actually making the food and the policies of the company and what they were basically telling us to do and the expectations that were upon us.
Sure.
There was so much being asked of us, just above minimum wage workers, that I was only working maybe 20 to 30 hours a week. And I felt like I was working full time, and I felt like I couldn't even disconnect from work when I left, which is weird, right? Because it's just making burritos.
Right.
But there was so much, like, it just felt like people were sitting in a boardroom, calling these shots, making these decisions, and over time, getting more disconnected from the actual experience of the people who are running the business, who the business wouldn't even exist without them. And the result of that was I dreaded going to work. I was stressed out. It was not an emotionally safe place to be because they had such high expectations that everybody was stepping on each other's toes to try to get shit done and, reach these expectations that, at the end of the day, it's like they wanted you to check 100 different boxes and you could never only get to like 30 of them. Right. Kind of feeling. That was like the feeling of it. And so, ultimately that was like a really awful part of that experience was really awful. There was other awesome things about working there. I met some great people. Yeah. I really enjoyed the food. I really believe in the mission and wanted to support the mission. And there seemed like there was this weird disconnect between the leadership who was running the company and the actual felt experience of the people running the business, serving the product, making the product. And that to me was just sad, because I really love them as a brand, and it wasn't sustainable. And from what I've heard from other people who worked there, it's gotten better since I was working there. I think they kind of were hitting this weird peak of, being disconnected in that way, which I think it always comes back to bite you. Right. There was even a big health scare that happened where they had a few different cases. I don't know if you remember a few years back, where that really hit their business. That almost made them go under.
That definitely put a big PR element in Chipotle for sure.
Yeah. This may sound crazy. I'm convinced that happened because of what I just described.
It very well could. Again, all these things that are seemingly negative are there for an intention. I believe, this is my belief, everything that's seemingly negative has an overall positive intention. We just don't understand it or have the ability to see it. Mm-hmm. Like COVID, I think that there's an overall positive intention that's going to come out, and we'll see over the years and maybe decades of what that has actually spurred and why the universe actually put that into our awareness. And, I personally have been experiencing more beautiful synchronicities outside of COVID, feeling like the universe has finally put in an environment in which for us to flourish in this new generation, in this new evolutionary step of consciousness. And kind of what you're describing in business, I'm an advocate and I study conscious business and conscious business models. And that's something that I've been very passionate about, as my my reason to be on this earth is I like to be a muse. I like to inspire others. I like to help take others to the next level. And that's why consulting is really right for me. And, I've always had an affinity for business ever since I was selling Pokemon cards in middle school, going and getting the blister decks. I got a Charizard, made $200. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And just continued the whole process up into this point. But there's been different vehicles that I've discovered that have really kind of opened my eyes for the evolution of business or of companies or corporations, because a lot of people don't realize that by law, a corporation the board of directors has to make a decision for its shareholders the most profitable.
Yep.
It's not what's best for the environment. It's not what's best for people. It's not what's best for its customers. It's what's most profitable to win the most amount of profit for its shareholders. By law, they have to make that decision. Even if the board member knows that this is going to be detrimental to the environment, they still have to make that decision. And when I learned that, it was a fundamental flaw in the system, and it's a reason why capitalism has gotten rampant and kind of out of control to where it's at today, is because of greed and this just, drive for profit, which
we're maximizing the wrong variable.
Exactly.
It's a poor choice to choose the highest variable to maximize for.
Couldn't agree more with you. There's so many other different full spectrum elements to be taken into consideration, and there's been a big movement over the last decade or more on a new vehicle. It's called B Corps, or business or benefit corporations, which has been adopted as its a vehicle that's very similar to a corporation, but it's also got elements of a nonprofit where the board of directors has the ability to make a decision not just for the shareholders' profit, but also taking into considerations other missions that have been implemented into the company from its founders.
Yep.
And that gives a lot more flexibility to companies that want to start acting more conscious. And you'll see all these types of symbols in, natural product stores. So, some of my background, I consulted in the natural products industry and, was able to learn from a lot of amazing consultants out of the consulting company called Beyond Brands. And that inspired me so much to be the man I am today, but also gave me clear insights into what's actually happening right now underneath the surface of what a lot of people are seeing. And voting with your dollar is really an amazing thing. And that's one of the reasons why I went vegetarian, is to stop funneling my money into something that I don't believe in. And so when you see that B Corp certified label or symbol on the label of anything, that means that this company is taking an initiative to buck the old system and put in a new system in place where you can all flourish. And, recently, one of my other clients that I'm working with right now is I'm actually helping convert their LLC into a workers-owned co-op. And a lot of people may or may not know what a co-op actually is. It can mean a lot of different things, but it's kind of a more democratic way of running a business. And, this is one mechanism that I'm learning a lot about, how it can impact the next generations of businesses and how it can empower the next, employee or the next community. And, by creating these systems of empowerment for people that may not have ever had the opportunity to step into their power, is really exciting, because the idea of a co-op is that everybody's equal. Just as an example, we're turning into a worker-owned co-op. And so the founders of this business want to sell the company to the established workers, and they want the workers to manage the company together as a synergistic team. So they're going to be the ones voting for the board of directors. Maybe all of them will be on the board of directors and they just vote them all in, or they can bring in other people, and then they have managers that manage the business, and they all have team meetings where they're all making decisions on the business together. So one of the examples is I put together the whole policies of how the business should be run and how people should be evaluating each other, and what are these elements, and I put a draft together. And now at this point, all of the team, we're all going through there. It's not us or the owners dictating it. It's like we're having an open conversation together of how are you going to manage yourself. And that's an empowering statement. That's an empowering workshop of no longer is it being dictated. Now you're empowered to say, hey, I'm going to hold myself accountable to something that I actually decided. That in my mind, is going to be so much more powerful. And, the discussions that have after that or during that, and then after it's implemented, the ability to execute that, everybody's just holding themselves accountable. It's no longer being dictated to them. It's all consent. I consented to being managed in this way. And I think that again, having that process be inclusive is really important, because where I just came from my previous career, it was all dictated. It was all, thought they were kings and dictating, down to the lower level stores, and just the attitude towards it was not something that I really liked. And the store staff, exactly the story that you felt, I felt in my last career. It was, the store staff didn't have any communication, or being dictated to. The people making these demands had no idea what it actually meant to implement these things, and really the implications that it had. And it was just not the situation. And now here I am, completely in a position now where I can create examples of what can be done, and creating systems that can help seed the next generation of businesses. And what's happening here in Phoenix is something really special. So the city of Phoenix actually invested into supporting co-ops and to supporting sustainable food systems. And so they've actually created a training program that is open to free to any Phoenix residents to go through a 10-week program to learn how to start your own co-op, or how to become a worker owner of a new co-op. And so 5 of our employees at Community Cuisine, which is another one of my clients, a vegan meal prep service, is going through that program. And so the city of Phoenix is really stepping up to support these novel ways of running a business that supports cohesiveness, that supports inclusion, that empowers people that may have never been empowered before. And one of the major elements of a co-op is teaching people how to run a business and how to manage their own business. And that's something that I think everybody should know, but it's not for everybody, is what I've learned. There's only certain people that want to step up to the plate, that really want to take the initiative, because just as well as I do what it takes to be a business owner, and it's not for everybody. But at least everybody has the opportunity to say their voice and to contribute. And I think that mindset can really help set the foundation for a sustainable, healthy ecosystem moving forward, and kind of getting out of the seclusion of capitalism, and be more inclusive and more sharing of business ideas, and getting rid of competition, and being more about collaboration.
Yeah, dude, 100%, man. I love everything that you just talked about, and I super resonate. And the model of business needs to change.
It has to.
Like, we literally can't go any further. We're hitting so many upper limits on what our whole bigger system can handle based off the principles of business we've been operating on.
Couldn't agree more with you.
It's literally running us into the ground. It creates so many negative externalities that aren't accounted for, that are just adding up and coming back to bite us. And right. I think the funny thing is, if I can find some humor in it, is on this path of maximizing profits, right, at whatever expense, legally, you must do this. Well, 2 things happen. One is, well, what is profit? What is simple? I wrote a post on this like within the last week. It's like, what is profit? All profit is revenue minus expenses, right? It's whatever's left over after the money you bring in and the money that goes out. It's the leftover. So, well, there's really very few options you can do to increase your profit. There's literally 2 options, basically. One is you can increase your revenue. 2 is you can decrease your expenses.
Right.
And now, taking either of those to an extreme, you are inevitably going to start harming people and environment and the quality of the product, and also increase your likelihood that you're going to have to use methods of, let's say, increasing revenue that aren't actually honest or in integrity, just to bring that number up, right?
Definitely.
Or to decrease expenses by lowering the quality of the product. It's how often does that happen, where a bigger company buys a smaller company that's like a food company, and then the ingredients change,
right?
And then the product is not as good,
right?
But they're making more profits.
Well,
So
they just wanted to use that brand that's been established by their foundation and manipulate that and to cut out competition. And it's just this dark energy that's in business of manipulation, of taking advantage, and like at its very core is not healthy and it's not sustainable, and
it's short term.
short
That's
term.
it.
And it got us to where we're at. Like it was an
Sure.
ends to a mean is the way the universe used it, but now it's our time. It's our turn to really integrate these lessons and be able to grow from it.
We had enough cushion of starting out in a healthy environment of this planet, and now we've gotten to the point where it's literally we can't go any further,
Right.
unless we radically shift. I don't even want to say radically, unless we just shift our priorities. We shift what we value, and we shift how these systems operate. And so I think, to kind of tie it all together with that piece you're talking about of collaboration, and I love the new structures of business that are coming to fruition more and more now. I started learning about more of them the last few years. B Corp, we've got the CoOps. Like there's so many more ways that we can structure an organization that has a common purpose and mission. And I've always ran my business in such a way where I run it as a collaborative environment.
Yes, you do.
Which I'm glad you can attest to.
Definitely.
And I think there's something really special about that. One, I want to finish my thought over here, which was the humor part. So I think the humor part is the more you maximize for these short-term gains of profitability, in the long run, you actually start to hurt your ability to even make profits, because it comes all the way full circle to bite you.
Definitely.
And, I think that's what's happened, for example, in our medical industry right now. It's like these big, jab companies, we'll call them, have tried to maximize to a degree their profits. And now it's coming back where they've lost all trust in most people. Like there's very little trust left, which is unfortunate, because there's some very legitimate uses and needs, and I'm not anti-vaccination or anything like that. I think there is a proper use for a lot of our medical technologies, and yet the trust of the public has been so misused that rightfully people are like, I don't know if I want to have anything to do with this. And that's unfortunate. And I don't think that's the optimal either. It's like we should have trust in our corporations, but we need validation of what they're doing and how they're doing it, et cetera. So it's like, I think it ultimately, in the long run, it comes back to bite you, because that's just how nature works, baby.
It does.
It's always going to come back around. If you take shortcuts, eventually it's going to come back. So
Right.
I think the path forward for me is, we need to start shifting our business models. We need to shift how we do business. And I think where it starts with is, how do we treat people? And how do we care about people?
Right.
And what actually matters? So if we're not maximizing for profitability, what do we maximize for?
Right.
Which my thesis is, we maximize for the total human experience.
Love it. That's so beautiful.
Total human experience, which
Right.
I say that in the most expansive context possible, because
I love that.
let's say I can't maximize yours and my human experience if Joe over there is starving.
Right.
If he can't take care of his basic needs, it's like, man, that sucks, because I actually care about Joe, and like we're a part of this bigger organism called humanity.
Right.
I can't maximize my own human experience if I know there's billions of animals suffering on factory farms. Like,
Right.
I can only be so happy. Sure, I can be happy, but it's like I can't help but be connected to all other organisms and beings who are on this planet.
Right.
So it's like maximizing for the total human experience, my total experience, starting with me, the people around me, and what I do have control over, what I can affect. It's like I can't affect all the problems in the world. I can't address all the problems in the world, at least not right now.
Right.
Hopefully over time I increase my ability to do that, but it's like, but I can start where I'm at.
That's right.
I can start with, well, I have a food business.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make better choices in my business so that we can improve that. Let me treat the people in my business like human beings, like my friends, and let's do great work together. So I think it really, if we can maximize on that, profit then just becomes a secondary thing of like, yeah, you need excess resources to grow a business, right? And if you get better and better at something, if you master something, you get more efficient at doing it. But in the long run, my goal, and this is kind of to tie it all back to what I brought up earlier, my goal as I scale our business is to actually increase the potency of what we do.
Right.
Which right now I see mostly businesses get watered down as they scale. They get disconnected from their essence, or at best, they more or less maintain it. Like the best businesses I see out there, they're able to maintain what made them great in the first place.
Yeah.
But even those businesses aren't necessarily doing radically innovative things.
Sure.
Like they kind of hit a certain point. They hit a point of success, they scale it, but it's kind of the same thing, but just bigger,
right?
And that's cool. That's awesome. And I think there's a third possibility available that very few, if any, I've seen do it, especially to the degree I want to do it, which is like, how can I, as my business grows, the business itself, the core of the business, the essence of the business continues getting better.
Right. Well, you're going to be, pioneering this and like pioneering different things. I've been a pioneer in my whole life. I've realized, at this point of doing the hard work because, changing something from the old to the new is not an easy process. Paving the way is not an easy process. Figuring things out is not simple. It is very convoluted. It's very challenging. It's not financially rewarding. But again, being able to have this drive and have this goal and this mission in mind to be an example, to be the change you want to see in the world, makes that whole, difficult process that much more feasible, that much more important. And, the things that you're talking about right now is, what's happened in the old dynamic. And I think with what your mission is, what you have the opportunity to do and the environment in that which we're in, you'll succeed in that because again, from working with you, you're sustainable. You're very mindset of sustainable growth. And I've been in the corporate world, I've been in the business world. I know these people, and I know what their intention is. All their intention is to make money, and so they want to scale as fast as possible.
Or at least that's their priority. Maybe they do want to help people or do something amazing.
It's a second, third priority.
Yeah,
definitely, and that could be the case too. I think people are not inevitably evil. I think that their misconceptions and their priorities and their goals are misaligned. And I think that that's going to change in the future generations. And we're already seeing that, and we're already on our way towards that. But, dealing with that right now and being able to work within a system that we have to work with, I think is really important. But, companies like yours, mindset like yours, are really what's going to pave the way for future generations and to be the change you want to see in the world. And I think that's extremely important. And that's why I'm working with you, is to help manifest that dream and to, make a world a better place, better than when we got here.
Well, yeah, thank you. I received that, and I also very much admire your business as well, your consulting company. I mean, just the name itself, I think, kind of says it all. Synergistic collabs, like that's, we need more models of how to do business differently.
Right.
Like I'm convinced that's the best way to create change. That's my current understanding. It's the whole, don't fight the old system, create the new, and let the old either die off or evolve.
Right.
Evolve or die. Like I'm actually so about that now. I'm actually so about, I will be happy if, as we grow, we put other restaurants out of business if they are not aligned with higher principles that actually supports human evolution moving forward.
That's important.
But even I don't wish that upon them. And actually, that's only the secondary thing that I wish for them. What I actually wish for them is for them to learn from companies like mine and others who are also going to be paving the way and evolve and transform and take notes from when you see a company doing something that you're like, wow, that's different, or wow, that's cool, or like, wow, that's a unique way of doing things. Like put in the work to figure that out for yourself. Put in the work to figure that out for your business. Or if you don't know how to do that, hire someone to help you with that. Someone who's been there and done that and worked with other businesses to do that. So, I just hope that we can be a beacon and a light and an example for a different possibility for how we can do business. And I think the last thing I'll say is, yes, I am personally excited about this. And yes, I am, the captain of this ship, but one, I don't think I would actually be excited if this wasn't something that I felt was so important and that everybody who works for us also wants.
Right.
And two, I couldn't do any of this without all the people who are on my team and who are creative and supportive. And I'm just doing my best to get out of the way and create a space and an environment that each person can actually contribute to this bigger thing, rather than me being what is typically the biggest bottleneck in business, which is the business owner.
Right.
And specifically the business owner's ego.
Right.
So
you nailed it. I've experienced that, and you're 100% right on that.
And I'm not perfect at it, right? Like I'm still learning, but like
practicing.
I keep getting better, and that's my intention, and people know that that's my intention.
Right.
And so they support me in that. I support them in that, and I really just want to just say to all business owners out there, or even employees, like people who just work for someone else. It's like, business owners, it's like, be bold enough to do things different and create an environment that collaboration and creativity can flourish, and that your people really feel respected and appreciated. And if you work for a company, set a new standard for yourself, and see if you can find ways to invite those in more, guiding leadership positions,
right,
to implement more ways that they can create a safe environment, maybe starting by just expressing what you need, expressing what you desire.
Right.
And if they're open and receptive, you'll probably make some change. And if they're not, probably don't stay there for too much longer if you really don't enjoy existing in that environment, because there are more and more companies and business owners who want to create an environment like that. I see that. I believe that. And, I think the more that people demand that for themselves, the more businesses and owners are going to have to change and figure out how to create that environment, because they're not going to want to work for companies who don't have the kind of environment that we're blessed to have.
It's amazing advice. And I think we're kind of seeing that today with the worker shortages. It's not like we have a shortage of people. It's just a shortage of people willing to take less than what they deserve. And, this whole conversation again just kind of leads to my whole point of, I've discovered why I'm here, and to be a conscious business consultant and to help discover these new pathways and to be able to present them and help usher other companies and other businesses to reach their highest, evolutionary step, and to empower themselves, to empower their employees, to empower their customers, to be included into that, is something over the last couple of weeks I've just discovered. And, there's an opportunity with a group that I've been introduced with that's starting a consulting company, a co-op consulting company, to help other companies start their own co-ops. And
Dope.
I've been invited into that. And that was just a pinnacle point of me realizing wow, maybe, because I've always thought hey, I'm here for cannabis and hemp, and this is what I'm here for. But it's at a point, the industries are kind of at a point where they don't need me anymore. I've been there at the very beginning in 2013, 2014 in the hemp space, 2009, 2010 in the cannabis space here in Arizona. Before it was even cool, before anybody even knew what it was, I was there helping innovate. And I kind of feel like the universe and just God just puts me in certain things to help be another cog in the evolutionary process for it to be
like a catalyst.
A catalyst. And so I truly believe if I'm involved in anything and the energetics aligned, it's meant to happen, because I'm just a good omen of helping manifest things. And that's really truly how I feel. And
I will attest to that. You're a good omen for sure.
And that makes me happy. Helping others makes me happy. And so being able to help others manifest their dreams and their goals, and to pioneer something and, blaze a path for others to not make it be so hard and so difficult, that brings me immense joy. That is the best feelings that I could ever have in my life. And, that's why I do what I do. And what got me into the hemp space is I liked helping others by seeing natural pain relief. I just love opening people's minds up to natural pain relief and eradicating stigma, and being that pioneer and helping others understand that there's new business methods and new business vehicles that could be implemented. And we're at the very beginning of this realization or rediscovery, because this is not something new. Working together is not something new. It's something we lost over generations.
It's funny to even think about that.
Right?
Working together is like a new idea.
I know, right?
Or like something novel, something like courageous.
Right. I mean, we lived in a tribe, but then we went to kings and dictatorships, and like that's kind of the evolution. That's the ups and downs of the universe, of how it goes back and forth, it ebbs and flows. And this is something that I love to talk about, is we forget something so we can rediscover it and improve upon it. If we continually remembered it, if we didn't lose it, we wouldn't have the appreciation that we have when we rediscover it, and we wouldn't have a new perspective on what was there and what we can continue to improve upon to make it better. And that's art, that's evolution, that's all previous inspiration from previous generations or others, to take it upon ourselves and put our own flair onto it, and to create something from our viewpoint that others can again take that and just continue to go back and forth. And when we're able to do that, we're all rise up together, instead of like the old system of trying to take from each other. And that's how we all go down together. And so by building people up and supporting each other, in turn you will be supported. And then that's the way the universe is supposed to work, in my opinion. And I think that's where we're on our way back to in these conversations, like what we're doing, and each and every one of us taking it upon ourselves to implement this into our daily life, into our daily practice, will inspire others. And before you know it, month, year, 2 years, a decade goes down, and everything's changed. Like 5 years ago, I chose to be a vegetarian, and it was just because I wanted to vote with my dollar. And the only time at that point was Burger King had this, vegan burger patty, and like I was just like, okay, finally, and that's the only thing then when I'm out and about that I have. And now we're in a world, because I believe I made the decision not to keep feeding that system, and I've seen from the natural product space people feeling the financial burden of people not buying it anymore because they're voting with their dollar, and having to change their business model, not because they believe in it, but because it's a more profitable to go in a different direction. And now we see all these fast food restaurants offering vegan, plant-based, meals, and it's through a bunch of people making their own internal decision to improve their life and to take a stand, is how we can progress together. And I'm just happy to be in this universe and this planet and this time, and to at this point in my life start seeing all the blessings that from the seeds I planted 10 years ago to now really starting to come up, and the money trees here, and coming out of the dirt and flourishing. And I'm just so thankful and happy to be here.
Wow. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for being such a blessing in my life and in my business, and for being a part of it at the different stages of its evolution as it's growing up. Our little business is growing up.
It is. And we got a long way ahead of us.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm excited to be there every step of the way that I can, and supposed to meant to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for just the work you do in the world, for the presence that you show up with in the world, and for just being so committed to being of service to humanity at this time. I think it's really needed and necessary at this point, and we need more lights. We need more examples of people who are really dedicating themselves to bettering all beings, bettering our whole entire situation, and ultimately by choosing your highest alignment. So I think you bring through some really powerful messages and lessons and principles, and I'm just really honored to have you on the podcast and have you in my life in multiple capacities. And just appreciate you being on here. So how can people connect with you if they enjoyed listening to you today, if they heard something that really resonated? How can people connect with you more?
Well, you can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram or social media, Andrew Young. You can reach out to me by email, synergisticcollabs, COLLABS @gmail.com. Reach out to me, send me an email. If you'd like to set up a meeting, discuss anything business, personal pleasure, whatever, I'm open. I'm completely open to the ebbs and flows of the universe and manifestation that comes from random ways. And if I've inspired you today, if you want to inquire, I'm an open book. I'm all about collaboration. I will share anything that I have with you, and appreciate all the complimentary words, because I'm just a reflection of you, and we're all one. And that's, the more and more I get into this life, I realize that I'm just an individual facet of the whole collective experience, and the more that we're all just a reflection of each other. And by understanding in my life that I'm looking at myself and that we're all one, allows me to treat you like the way that I want to be treated. And so thank you for reminding me of that. And as I sit here and look at you, and I'm like, wow, we're all one. Like, wow, we're brothers, and we're all here to help each other. And so thank you for this container. I feel more inspired than ever after this conversation to hit the ground running and to dive back into my efforts and manifest heaven on earth, and make sure that all of our dreams come true.
Beautiful.
Yes, the breath. Always bring back to the breath. I love the breath.
Well, thank you, everyone who listened up to this point. We appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Feel free to reach out anytime if anything piqued your interest, resonated. We'd love to hear from you. And until then, be well, and we will jump back on again soon.